So, an in-depth analysis, discussion, and thought from a guy like me, that's completely pro Diaz, not only pro Diaz, but the whole scrap pack, the entire fucking scrap pack, all four of them. They're all champions. They all train together, and they're out of my top 10. Yeah, all four of them are in it. So, how are you supposed to take in-depth analysis? That's non-biased. The way I learned how to do it was the incredibly frustrating Nick Diaz versus Carlos Condit fight. What happened in that fight, I'll never know because I was watching a whole different fight than what everybody else was watching. I didn't see Carlos winning that fight at all. Matter of fact, I was fairly confident that going to the judges' scorecards that knowing that Diaz brothers don't typically win decisions. Nick was going to grab this one. Didn't see how any of that played out in Carlos' favor. What I saw was rounds 1 and 2 were for sure Nick Diaz. Rounds 3 and 4, Carlos picked up the pace, started whooping his ass. Round 5, Nick came back with a vengeance. 3 rounds to 2, 1, 2, 5 to Nick. It's as simple as that. And what I had to do in order to understand how that was possibly scored was Carlos was wearing blue gloves, Nick was wearing red gloves. So what I had to do was not look at them as Nick Diaz, my favorite fighter, or one of my favorite fighters, and Carlos Condit. I didn't look at them like that. I looked at them as the dude in the blue gloves and the dude in the red gloves, and tried to score it that way. And then even I think three or four times that I watched it and scored it that way. One time I got a draw. One time I got scored for Condit, but still two I scored for Diaz. So I'm going to do this the best I can, non-biased, in-depth. Guarantee this is the most in-depth that anyone's. I mean, there's very few people that have the knowledge that I have on these two guys. I've been watching mixed martial arts since I was 13 years old. I mean, GSP and Nick Diaz weren't even old enough to fight yet, and yeah, GSP and Diaz weren't even old enough to fight yet. GSP and Diaz, a lot of people were comparing this fight to like how Chael Sonnen managed to lose two title fights, in a row, to Anderson Silva at middleweight, then bump up a weight class and not only not have to fight to get a title shot. You're going to a different division, and there's already guys lined up, to take that spot. And he just stepped on his foot down and said, "Well, I got John Jones, and I got next on Jones." And no, it wasn't like that. George St-Pierre actually asked for Nick Diaz. It was actually what was in the works was a fight between GSP, Anderson Silva. Diaz had no idea that George was going to ask for the fight. But I mean, do I think it's good? No. I think that I would like to. I would like Diaz to take a fight first. I said the same thing about Nate Diaz whenever he fought Ben Henderson. I would have loved to see. I would love to see he and Pettis go at it, and that would decide, the number one contender. I still say it. I think that would have done, a lot better, and look how that played out. So I don't have that all that great of a feeling. I don't have the feeling of victory for Diaz. I don't have the feeling of victory for GSP. What I do have is an in-depth analysis, man. As it stands right now, the official betting odds for UFC 158, St-Pierre versus Diaz. I'm working on it. St-Pierre versus Diaz is GSP is actually moving up. He's not only a 4-1 favorite anymore. He's minus 425, and Nick has slid to not plus 350 but plus 375. So it's actually gone slightly in GSP's favor, which is fine with me. I mean, I live my life basically on odds. But when you break it down like I've broken this down, and you don't really need odds, so much. So moving on. Mind you, this is the third time that I've done this analyzation. This is the third time that I've made this exact same list, and I'm doing it fair. I'm speaking aloud now. This is the third time that I've made this list, and I even put a couple videos that I posted said if you don't like the way I make my list, make your own list. If you don't like my answers or the way that I did, I gave Nick this advantage, I gave George this advantage, then if you think it should be switched around, go ahead, make your own list, switch it around. But every time that I do it, I get these same results, and this is how it goes down. It goes, what I wrote down was boxing, Thai, striking, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, cardio, strength, cage control, speed, athleticism, chin, experience, aggression, finishes, kicks, and mental state. That's what I wrote down. I wrote down 16, assets that you want to have going into a mixed martial arts fight. You want to have boxing, of course. You want to have kicks. You want to be mentally prepared. You want to be able to control have cage control. You want to be strong. You want to be fast. I wrote everything down that I could possibly think of. And boxing, I give the Diaz. Speed, I give the GSP. Muay Thai, I give the GSP. Nick doesn't throw enough kicks, and he doesn't block. He doesn't check leg kicks. He'd rather take leg kicks than. It's almost like a bad habit or something. I'm just not sure. I've never gotten a chance to personally ask Nick Diaz why he doesn't check leg kicks after all these years. But I mean, the leg kicks he took from Cyborg, he couldn't take. He can't take those in a 25-minute fight, a 5-round 25-minute fight with George St-Pierre. Muay Thai, I gave the GSP. Athleticism, I also gave to George St-Pierre. Striking all around, and what I mean by striking all around is if it were just a striking match, say a kickboxing match. What I mean by boxing is if they were to put on a pair of boxing gloves, just boxing gloves, just straight boxing gloves, who would win the boxing match? I think Nick Diaz would. If it were, if it were an athleticism, if it was a fucking race, a foot race, I think GSP would win. This is what I'm saying. Striking all around, I'm talking like a kickboxing match. If you couldn't take anybody down, it had to be standing up on the feet the entire time for 25 minutes. I would give that to Diaz. So I gave striking all around to Nick Diaz. Chin, I gave to Diaz. I saw George St-Pierre get knocked down by Matt Serra. Wrestling, I certainly gave to George St-Pierre. So what we have here is boxing, Diaz, speed, GSP, Muay Thai, GSP, athleticism, GSP, striking, Diaz, chin, Diaz, wrestling, George St-Pierre, experience, I gave to Nick Diaz, only because Nick Diaz has fought in Dream, Pride, Elite XC, Strikeforce, the UFC, the IFL, was the former welterweight champion of the WEC. He's internationally known. He's fought all around the world. He's been fighting for longer. He's fought in more organizations, more accolades. Yet George St-Pierre has held the UFC title for ages, but Nick's held a few titles, and he's fought catch weights, he's fought middleweight, lightweight, 160, 170, 184. Nick will pretty much fight at any weight. Moving along. Let's see, wrestling, GSP, experience, Diaz, jiu-jitsu, Nick Diaz. I gave it to Nick Diaz. I don't know how you can argue that. Aggression, this one was hard for me because they're both super aggressive alpha male type of fighters, but I gave it to Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz is constantly forward. That pressure never alleviates. It's just constant forward pressure, especially with his hands. As he walks forward, he's boxing the entire time, so it's constant pressure and constant swinging. It's all forward movement. There's no backward movement at all. So I gave aggression to Diaz. Cardio, I gave to Diaz. Motherfucker swam Alcatraz. I've seen GSP tired. I've never seen Nick Diaz tired. Not once. Not once. So, okay, finishing ability, I gave it to Nick Diaz. Of course, we haven't seen a finish from George St-Pierre in almost 3 years. And that, to me, that's troubling. Anyway, black and white, red and blue. So, okay, strength, I gave to George St-Pierre. Kicks, in the kicking department, I gave to George St-Pierre. Cage control. This was another really hard one for me. And cage control. Nick has again the ability to box people in this little V, like this little corner, and dig, body shots in until you swing back. And it's almost his reflexes are so good. He usually backs out of the way of what you have to throw, and you usually eat an elbow for your troubles. But I gave it to GSP. Cage control is George St-Pierre. He's going to dictate. He's going to be able to dictate the pace, where the fight goes, a lot better than Nick Diaz. And another really hard one for me was the mental game. Who has the mental edge? George St-Pierre is just so hard to break. You're not going to break. We saw Josh Koscheck. Josh Koscheck had an entire season of The Ultimate Fighter, coaching The Ultimate Fighter. He had the entire goddamn season to get into GSP's head and couldn't do it. As a matter of fact, GSP flipped the script on him and fucked with him a little bit as far as the picks went. So, but Nick Diaz is unbreakable. It's not that he's, I believe he's truly unbreakable. I've never seen the guy break before. There's no evidence he's going to break anytime soon. So I went ahead and gave the mental edge to Nick Diaz. Talks in the cage, he tries to wolf you down. I don't think that's going to work with George St-Pierre. I don't think the talking in the cage is going to work with George St-Pierre. Say it one more time. I do not think that's going to work with GSP. But damn well bet your last bottom dollar that he's going to do it anyway. We're going to hear some talking, and I like it. It's appeasing to the eye. It's fun to watch. This is a fight fan's fight. This is a dream fight. This is literally like a fantasy fight. Shit. So if you count all those up, the boxing, the speed, Muay Thai, athleticism, striking, chin, wrestling, experience, jiu-jitsu, aggression, cardio, finishing, strength, kicks, cage control, and mental game. I gave Nick Diaz 9 for the third time. 3 times I gave Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz scored 9 of those. George St-Pierre scored 7. So my paper champion is Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz does look better on paper to me. Now again, if you want to write those down, boxing, Muay Thai, striking, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, cardio, strength, cage control, speed, athleticism, chin, experience, aggression, finishing ability, kicks, and mental game. Write those down and see who you have. See who your pick is. Maybe yours is different than mine. Certainly, we're going to have different opinions. But I'm strictly going on. I'm not going on Nick Diaz or George St-Pierre. I'm not favoring either guy. Those are my honest answers. And 3 out of 3 times Nick Diaz, 9 to 7. So. And see, another positive that's coming out of this whole ordeal is what we're getting out of this as fans is we're getting a fight for the fans. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that don't like the Diaz brothers. Period. They don't like Nick Diaz. They don't like Nate Diaz. They don't like the way they carry themselves. They don't like the way that they represent the sport. I tend to disagree, but. There are people like that. People have different opinions. So, say you're one of those people, but you cannot say that Nick's a boring fighter. I can't recall ever seeing Nick in a boring fight in my life. The most boring fight I've ever seen him was Carlos Condit, because he almost had, it felt like to me, almost had to force him to engage. And, that's not going to happen with George St-Pierre. He's not going to have to force GSP to engage. I'm pretty sure GSP's pretty game to fight Diaz. He called him out. The thing that worries, again, Diaz 13-month layoff and GSP's ACL. I hope it's holding up well, and I hope Nick's been training, because that would be the only thing that would hinder the excitement that we're going to get out of UFC 158 for sure. A lot of people say, GSP. Diaz fans would say, is he going to be able to penetrate, just slice right through Nick's guard? Yes, I think he will be able to slice through Nick's guard. But then again, if you get too aggressive in Nick's guard, you're probably going to get tied up in something. Then again, if you sit there and hold someone in the cradle position, the wrestling position, the cradle, and let Nick lay on the ground and think, you're probably going to get stuck in something too. So I mean, it's just, for me, my mind, it's like a fucking a game of ping pong. I don't know who's going to win this fight. Um, yeah, with Nick's pressure in jiu-jitsu and George St-Pierre's, huge wrestling advantage, an epic top game, a dynamic striker, and usually, like I said, it's to set up a takedown. But it's still dynamic boxing. It's still pinpoint precision with power. Nick Diaz comes at you with punches in volume. He's fine with being taken down because he could probably submit anybody. Like I said, best guard in the 170-pound division other than Maya. So, what it looks like to me is, what it looks like to me is Diaz on the feet and St-Pierre on the mat. That's what it looks like to me. And what we've seen as of late is a lot of, GSP puts people on the mat, ground and pounds them into a 5-round decision. I just can't see that happening with Nick Diaz. I can't see Nick Diaz having 25 minutes to work with and not being able to come up with something. So I don't see that happening. I see something happening in this fight. It's not good. I don't see it going 5 rounds at all. If it does, it's most likely going to go to George St-Pierre in Montreal, and with Nick's luck and Nate's luck with the judges. I see it going George St-Pierre's way. If he can't repeatedly get taken down, he's got to work on his wrestling defense, and he's got to drill off of his back. George St-Pierre has got to work on his submission defense. He's got to work on his boxing. Especially that style that nobody else has except for the Diaz brothers, and it wins them fights. Just as George's style wins him fights, Nick's style wins him fights. So, to me, it's a coin toss. It's a 50-50. And that's about as analytical as you can get. And the final thing I got for you is, if it stays on the feet, I think Nick's going to be able to box him up, make him dizzy, knock him down, and submit him. If it goes the way that we've seen for the past 3 or 4 years, George St-Pierre is going to take home another victory, and he's going to defeat Nick Diaz in Montreal. Either way, I don't see anyone losing. I see an epic fight happening in March. UFC 158, I think it's going to be epic. It's going to be a new experience for St-Pierre because he's never been in the cage with the Diaz brother. And, that sits there and talks shit to you. What, bitch, suck the motherfucker. Throwing his hand. It's going to be fucking crazy for George. And, it's going to be crazy for Nick, having someone that's so much stronger and faster than him, being able to scoop him up and rush it and take him down. It's just going to be It's going to be a hell of an experience for everyone, especially us. We win. As fans, we win because we get to watch this. But anyway, who wins in the end? We win. I don't even think Dana White wins in this one. I think we win. I think it's going to be an early candidate for Fight of the Year. It's just going to be an incredible bout. I hope you enjoyed the video. That's as analytical as I can make it. Again, make your sheet and let me know in the comment section who you picked for who you picked for boxing, cardio, etc. And let me know what you think. Like, don't like, but most important of all, subscribe. I'm trying to get up to 250 by the time of the fight. I want at least 250. That would be that's my goal, my personal goal. So thank you all for paying attention and watching. I love you all very much.